7 years after shelving a potentially explosive story, journalist Andrew Norfolk found his conscience calling him.
As the years went by, I had this very uncomfortable feeling like I hadn't done my job. I was on a long weekend. I was driving up to Scotland. I had the radio on. A news item came on the BBC.
Greater Manchester Police have been describing how a 14-year-old girl was forced to endure an absolutely horrifying ordeal after being forced into prostitution. The vulnerable teenager was targeted with vodka and cigarettes after she was spotted wandering the streets before she was made to have sex with a string of men.
At no stage in the report had the names of the defendants been read out. I'm sitting in my car in the middle of nowhere, and I'm thinking, you've not heard a word about this case until 5 minutes ago. And yet, with every fibre of my being, I bet I do know something about those men, because I bet when I check it out, they're going to be Muslim names. So I got back, I looked it up. They were all Muslim names, Muslim men. I sat down that night and I wrote a very long email to the news editor of the Times, saying that I thought there was something really troubling going on here, that it wasn't being acknowledged, and that I needed some time to look into the story to see whether what I thought was a pattern was indeed a pattern.
As Andrew set to work, demonstrations were sweeping across the country, led by the emerging face of the far right, the English Defence League. Its members were young, organised and growing in numbers, and its marches often descended into violence.
Gas grenades were thrown, police vehicles were vandalised, and the police themselves were attacked.
The EDL's goal was to stem the growth of a faith that it believed was corrupting the country. And in the grooming of white children, they saw not just a crime, but evidence of a broader Islamic agenda.
Militant Muslim gangs taking liberties in our towns and cities, taking liberties with non-Muslim youth, non-Muslim girls, raping, pimping, beating, abusing our whole system.
As you can see behind me, there's a massive police presence in Bradford today. Around 200 members of the English police.
The squeamishness of the liberal establishment, and that includes the media, national politicians, police forces, social services, in actually confronting what was going on, left a void, and into that void marched the EDL to spread a completely poisoned, a divisive agenda. It had become quite personal for me. There was a sense of actually reclaiming this story from the wrong agenda, the far right's agenda, and putting it squarely where it should have been all along. We used every bit of software we had to try to look back at every criminal court case that there'd been in recent years in which 2 or more men had been convicted of sexual offences against girls who were aged 12 to 15, where the initial point of contact had been in a public place. Shopping mall, outside a bus station, train station, city centre, outside school gates. We needed to build that picture of all such cases, because if we were going to say what I sense we might be going to say, which is there was a specific pattern here involving men largely of the British Pakistani community committing offences against young white girls, we needed rock-solid evidential base. That trawling process produced cases involving the conviction of 56 men. Of those 56 men, 3 of them were white British men, 53 were Asian names, 50 of the 53 were Muslim names, the vast majority were British Pakistani. This was a process being repeated. It was happening in Birmingham, it was happening in Bradford, it was happening in Manchester, it was happening in Burnley. How had this pattern developed? How had it developed apparently completely unseen by the authorities? How come every single aspect of the British establishment treated every single case that had cropped up as an isolated one-off case with no pattern whatsoever to any of the other cases that were so similar? the statistics were there. We needed to start talking to people about it and asking, what's going on here? What do you think? What are you doing about it? What are you not doing about it? We went to police forces, we approached local authorities, we went to specialist charities, government departments. Nobody would speak about this.